As mentioned before, we all would like to believe about ourselves that we are good at strategy formation. Only those dumb implementers are failing us all over again. Simon's 7 strategy questions are a great coaching tool to help us with implementation. The questions are designed to help a coach or a manager to identify key potential issues. Harvard Business School professor Robert Simmons published in 2010 an article at Harvard Business Review. Stress test your strategy, the 7 questions to ask, with the following list of questions. Who is your primary customer? How do your core values prioritize shareholders, employees, and customers? What critical performance variables are you checking? What strategic boundaries have you set? How are you generating creative tension? How committed are your employees to helping each other? And what strategic uncertainties keep you awake at night? Here, we are going to explain a context for those questions. First, who is your primary customer? We can also say your ideal customer avatar. As Professor Simmons explained, choosing a primary customer is a make or break decision. Why? Because it should determine how you allocate resources. The idea is simple. Allocate all possible resources to meet and exceed your primary customer's needs. Consider the following questions to deepen the conversation. Who do you want to serve particularly well and why? Who don't you want to serve and why? What does your primary customer value? How do you make sure that you provide the greatest possible value? Does everyone in the company clearly understand who your primary customer is? Next, how do your core values prioritize shareholders, employees, and customers? Managers should decide how to prioritize the needs of shareholders, employees, and customers. Although there is no universal right or wrong answer to the question who comes the first, as we are going to explain within the next section, core values must indicate whose interests come first when difficult trade-offs must be made. Consider the following questions to deepen the conversation. What are your organization's core values about shareholders, employees, and customers? Does everyone in your organization understand your core values? No matter who comes first, does your core values respect interests of other stakeholders as well? What tough decisions have you already made by using those values? Are there any elements of your strategy that are misaligned with those values? Next, what critical performance variables are you checking? While first 2 questions are focused on prioritization or decision making and resource allocation, here is the focus on delivering results. The essence refers to understanding what drives value for the customer. Some companies try to measure too many elements by creating extensive scorecards. However, we cannot successfully keep checking so many variables. As Professor Simmons said, effective managers monitor only a small number, those that could cause their strategy to fail. Those may be different stimuli like specific product features, location, attractive promotions, etc., and they are combined with KPIs usually linked to sales. For example, sales per shop or SQM for a retail business, number of visitors and conversion rates for online business, etc. Consider the following questions to deepen the conversation. What drive values for your customers? How do you know if you measure what really matters? How do you hold people accountable for their performance? Are your performance measures consistent and do they motivate the correct behaviors? Next, what strategic boundaries have you set? Here is the point of controlling strategic risk. To do so, a manager has 2 options: to tell employees what to do or to tell them what not to do. The first option is characteristic for large bureaucratic organizations. The second option is characterized for innovative and entrepreneurial organizations. As Professor Simmons explained, you should hire creative people and tell them what not to do. In other words, you should give them freedom to exercise their creativity within defined limits. Consider the following questions to deepen the conversation. What actions or decisions could risk your business? What kind of strategic initiatives you don't want to support? How will you communicate what the boundaries are? How will you enforce them? Next, how are you generating creative tension? As Professor Simon said, as a business leader, one of your primary jobs is to make outside market pressures felt inside your business. Simply, a role of a leader is to translate sense of a market competition into internal creative tension in order to produce a response of innovation and fighting spirit. Here, different techniques might be applied. Assigning stretch goals. Here is a focus on motivating people to think and act big. Doing business as usual with incremental changes is not enough. Only aggressive targets move people to think differently. Next, ranking according to performance. Here is the point of ranking individuals according to their personal performance. The rankings affect who is promoted, who is placed on probation, and who is asked to leave. Next, setting spans of accountability that are greater than spans of control. Ranking individuals is just part of the game. Ranking organizational units is also needed in order to increase mutual cooperation and facilitate innovation. Simply, a leader is putting his people in a situation that if they want to innovate, individual managers must be accountable for measures that are broader than the resources they individually control. Next, allocating costs. Overhead costs are present in every single corporation. Here is a point relevant not just for accounting, but to start discussions about the value of corporate services provided. Next, creating cross-unit teams and matrix accountability. As Professor Simons said, another way of forcing employees to think outside the box is to assign them to a second box. New perspectives emerge when people are forced out of their routines. When they attend cross-unit team meetings, employees not only serve as emissaries for their home units, but also return with ideas and innovations from their new colleagues. Next, how committed are your employees to helping each other? It's important to encourage employees to excel individually, but they also should work and help each other. Professor Simons highlighted that committed organizations should have the following 4 attributes: pride in purpose, identification with the group, trust, and fairness. Next, what strategic uncertainties keep you awake at night? As Simons noted, at the root of every failed strategy is a set of assumptions about the future that eventually proved false. Only 3 things in life are certain: death, taxes, and the fact that today's strategy won't work tomorrow. At some point, your products will become obsolete, your customers' tastes will change, or technology will render your business model uncompetitive. Today's successes will be tomorrow's old news. The question is not if, but when. Consider the following questions to deepen the conversation. What issues are the biggest concern for you? How do you keep employees' attention focused on these issues? How do you keep employees responsive to changing environment? How your culture and leadership style are supportive to top-down and bottom-up learning and experimentation? To conclude, Simons' 7 strategy questions encourage us to think critically about the strategic plan and to consider what CEO and his team can do to support it throughout the organization. The first focus refers to selected core customers and their relative importance among stakeholders, a sort of a commitment. The second refers to delivering and checking the product satisfaction alignment and removing potential distractions. The last one refers to keeping team awake, mutually cooperative and responsive to changing circumstances.